Welcome to day 3 of Alchemy Codes. I am so glad you guys are back with me again today. It's so good to see you here. I think there might be a couple people who haven't been live for days 1 and 2, which is totally fine. You can go back and watch the replay whenever you're ready. Today's content, day 3, is pretty standalone anyways. What we're actually going to be talking about today is how you can use numerology to make an impact. The things I share today are going to be completely relevant to you, whether or not you choose to study numerology. What I'm going to do is bring in how you can use numerology to help you with this. And if you have other tools and other modalities, that's fine too. But this idea of like the desire to make an impact. Most of us go into this work, into this line of work, into the business of helping people and supporting people because we desire to make an impact. We see what's possible for someone. We see how we would like things to be potentially better or more in service. And that's why we do what we do, right? So if you resonate with any of that, if you feel like you chose the path you're on because you want to make an impact, you would like to support people to live healthier, live a better life, feel more aligned, be more connected, have improved relationships, feel better in general. Drop a comment in the chat and let me know if you're resonating with that. Um, and just kind of let me know where you're at. Is this a journey that you've been on for some time in terms of the desire to make an impact, a positive impact in other people's lives, or is this relatively new to you? Yes, Ambre is saying 1,000,000%. Maybe that's 1,000,000%. I'm not sure, but yes, 1,000%. This is one of the things I love so much about being in the business of support, whether it's as a healer, as a coach, as a teacher, as a guide, as a consultant, whatever it is, right? Whether you're helping people on the emotional level, the physical level, the financial level, the spiritual level, whatever it is. Yes, Ainsley's here for it. 100% Michelle, I want to make a positive impact. Mary, I've been working. Yeah. I feel like I'm pivoting one to reaching more people. Oh my God, girl, you're going to love today's topic then, because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about is how to make that impact, how to make that difference in other people's lives, and do it in a way that feels in integrity. Do it in a way that feels aligned with who you are and what your energy code is. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, Marissa, definitely been stepping more fully into my purpose over the last decade to influence, promote healing, and share information. Oh, yes. Ambre is saying empathic, coach, mother, spiritual awareness. Yes, open source code. I love it. Ainsley, time for action. Yes, it is. Ainsley, I am feeling the fire behind you lately. Girl, you are in the right place. Absolutely. Yes, and Shay is saying, I feel like there's something more than what I'm currently doing. 100%. There's always something more. There's always that next step of evolution, of what's available for us. And it's really interesting because I was actually watching a reel I just did, I don't even know, 6 months ago or a while back, and it popped up in a memory today. And it was talking about how do you know? Like, how do you know if something's right for you, if something is on your path, if something's part of your timeline of making an impact? There's really just two things. And the first starts with, do you want it? Do you have the desire? Is it something that's calling to you? And this is where a lot of times people will ask for signs, right? Like, is it something I choose? Is it something I want? Is it something I desire? And then we say, okay, universe, show me the signs. Tell me I'm on the right path. Tell me I'm on the right direction. And I kind of have a bit of a mixed feeling about this, okay? Because number one, the universe isn't bossy. The universe is not going to tell you what to do. The universe is 100% going to empower you in your free will, desire, and choice. But if you're like, I'm not sure, I'm going to like just kind of fence sit over here for a little bit and wait till someone tells me to leap off the fence. In my experience, it might happen here and there, but it doesn't tend to be the most common way. The most common way is like the choice of like, you know what? I'm going to do this. Nobody's given me permission. Nobody's like cleared out a full on path of obviousness for me. I'm going to figure this out. Is my internet lagging? Are you guys with me? I felt a little lag there. Okay, we're here. Okay, good. Thank you. A little bit lagging. Yeah, so you first need to decide. Okay, let me just make sure I don't have any windows open that are unnecessarily using up energy, bandwidth, whatever you want to call it. Uh, yeah, and so if you're listening on the call today, whether you're live on the replay and you're like, I feel like there's something here for me. I feel like there's something greater for me. I don't know. I don't know, right? I want you to explore this idea of like, what if there was no right or wrong? But what if you could make a decision and then see what unfolded from there? Because it never fails, you guys, never fails. We get clarity through action. Has anyone else noticed this? If you take a step, this is such a seven thing to say. This is me, this is my energy. So of course I'm going to say it, but it's such seven medicine of like, you will get your clarity when you take a step. You take action, you try it on, you feel it out, and then you reassess. Like, okay, yeah, all right, let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few pieces on what you can do if you desire to make an impact, how that impact can support you personally and professionally. And of course, I'm going to weave in how I use numerology to do this. You don't have to use numerology to do this, but it's a really awesome channel, obviously, in my opinion. No bias there whatsoever. But I'm obsessed with it. So, number one, if you desire to make an impact, the first thing you really need to be aware of is number one, how am I building community and creating opportunities for collaboration? Okay, this is the first step. If you desire to make an impact, community, collaboration, that's step one. So, for those of you who mentioned in the chat, like I've been great at one-on-ones and I'm feeling the desire to expand that a little bit more, right? I would either like to work with groups of people. I would either like to create maybe some group trainings or workshops or events or retreats, whatever it is. I want to impact people on a larger scale. Number one, the most important thing is to build your community. Okay. Completely a non negotiable in my experience. It's impossible to build a business or a life where you make an impact if you are operating in isolation or in a vacuum. You must be willing to connect, to collaborate. Okay, so now that we know we must be willing to connect and collaborate, what's the best way to do that? Okay, what's the best way to do that? There's been a few ways where numerology has opened so many doors for me that it's mind blowing. And I really believe that, at the end of the day, I think the most powerful piece of incorporating numerology or a tool like numerology is being able to see everyone in their truth, being able to see people through the lens of their truest essence. And so, if you're the kind of person who lets other people feel seen, heard, and understood, they feel safe with you. They feel connected to you. They will come into your space with an open heart. They know there's no hidden agendas. They know there's no like, I don't know, secrets or whatever, right? They can feel seen, heard, and understood, which creates safety. People cannot build community without safety. They cannot feel safe to heal, to grow, to be vulnerable, to talk about the difficult things if there's no safety in place. And at the end of the day, to me, safety is like, can I be my fully expressed self? Can I say the weird ass things that come to mind and know that I'll be accepted for it and know that I'll be seen for it? And not only will I be accepted for it, but like, what if I'm celebrated for it? What if the things that are uniquely interesting, weird, whatever about me are truly celebrated? And I wrote a post about this as well today because it's really been on my heart that for me, one of the things that changed everything in my life, this happened a few years back, was I was surrounded by a couple of women who would celebrate my bigness. Okay. I want to use the term bigness because it is this like fully expressed version of yourself where you're unfiltered. It sometimes might even feel a little bit unhinged. It's not the polished version of you. It's not the version of you that's like, like whatever, Facebook Live ready or, front of a stage ready. but it's the version of you who can be fully, fully expressed. And I'm telling you, that version of you, it's not always beautiful. It's a little messy because we have never been given containers. Most of us have never been given containers where that fully unexpressed version, fully expressed version, fully unleashed version was welcome. And so finding spaces that celebrate that, that hold space for that, and that don't necessarily need anything out of that, right? There's this like space holding versus taking. If you can find spaces and create spaces for that, you will find a level of richness and mastery in your energy that will be unmatched, completely unmatched. So, in order for you to be willing to build a community, are you willing to, first of all, allow that within yourself? And then, second of all, if you're willing to allow it within yourself, that makes it possible for you to allow that within others, for you to hold space within others. If I haven't met that version of me yet, pretty hard for me to hold space for someone else, right? I have to be willing to have met that version of me. And so this is where I love bringing in the numbers, because it's like, well, what does a fully expressed 7 look like? What does a fully expressed 4 look like? If you blow that up to like the 10 times, 100 times version of yourself, like dramatize it a little bit and play with it and see what happens. And this, you guys are going to probably hear threads of what I'm saying as like playing with archetypal energy, which is another way you can look at this, right? Let yourself big that, let yourself grow that, and let yourself be celebrated in it, and hold space for others to do the same. Because if we're growing, if we're healing, if we're stretching, we need to be willing to reach the edges, which isn't always comfortable, right? And it's risky, which is where it comes back to creating a safe environment for people to feel seen, heard, and understood. So I love looking at that through the numbers. And I love that the more I access these versions of myself through understanding my code, the more I create safe spaces for other people to do it too. Like I'm never walking somewhere with a client that I haven't been willing to face myself. And that creates authenticity, which is such a critical aspect of building community. The second piece about building community. Okay, so we started with the deep one, guys. We started with the deep one. The one that's a little bit less deep, but equally as important, is the idea of guest experts and being willing to share your genius freely with others, and being willing to welcome others into your space to share their genius freely. Numerology has opened so many doors for me, both being invited into other spaces, as well as like if I take a course with someone, being positioned as an expert, because people will just be like, oh, Megan, we see such and such number on the clock right now. What does that mean? Or earlier today in the mastermind group I'm in, someone screenshot a number on their phone and posted it in my mastermind group and tagged me in it. So I was like, oh, I quickly pop in and I'm like, this is what it means. And I could tell from that person's response how profound that answer was for them, even though it was literally like 4 sentences. But they felt the resonance of it. They felt the truth of it. They felt the alignment of it. And it deeply meant something to them, right? So having a skill like this, where other people desire your wisdom and you desire to experience the wisdom of others. I know what my zone of genius is. I know what I'm not good at. I know what are not my skills. So that makes it easy for me to invite in other experts and collaborate. Because I'm like, this is me. This is where I sit over here. This is my zone of genius. I am not this. Let me highlight, celebrate, and uplift other people who are that, because there's more than enough space for all of us to go around. We all get to shine in our own little genius, right? I love this. I'm just catching up on the chat here, right? Authenticity, all of it for sure. Yeah. Oh, the dualities. This is so important, Jody. Like, I love that you're talking about this. The dualities right now are intense. Okay. Comment in the chat if you feel the intensity of the dualities. And what that means is living in the space of both and, right? Like life is really challenging, difficult, stressful, like crunchy, at our edges, intense, but also loving, profound, meaningful, sacred, tender. All of these things are true, right? The duality is so potent right now. And again, when I learned to speak the language of numbers and learned to view these energies through those lenses, it gave me more context as to what was happening and why. And it also gave me the space to hold the nuance, right? I can hold that in an 8 energy year, there's going to be imposter syndrome. Like it is going to be hitting a lot of people hard. And it's birthing a level of mastery that we've never experienced before. Both are true. Both are true. And I can see that through the lens of the codes, which allows me to hold the nuance of life with more ease, right? The paradox of life with more ease. Yes. Oof. If we are ever finding ourselves in a space where the messaging is you're too much and tone it down, that is not your space, right? That is not your space. Find people who celebrate your bigness. Even one person in your life who celebrates your bigness, who celebrates the loudest, most fully expressed, most crazy, most unhinged version of you, who celebrates that for you, that is life-changing. That will literally change your life. You just need one person who's willing to call that forth, right? Who's saying to you, please give me more. I want more, right? I cannot underestimate the power of that. Yes, giving us energy, giving us joy by being tapped into our own authenticity, working with our codes, the reassurance. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And different planetary alignments and moon placements and things like that can also impact how some of these energies play out. Yes, riding the wave 100%. Okay, so building community, collaborating. Number one, being willing to be fully aligned with your own code. Number two, being willing to share your expertise generously, being a generous contributor and welcoming other people to do the same. Numerology has done that times 1,000 because I can always talk about numbers no matter what space I'm in. If we're talking about like hardcore business topics, if we're talking about like, spiritual topics or esoteric topics or whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like I can literally talk about it no matter what. And so finding spaces where you get to share your genius and encouraged to do so in a way that sets you apart. I will say a lot of people will say to me, Megan, like when you go to forecast on something or when you see a number pattern, you just instantly know it. Do you think that's been true my entire life? Like, no. The reason I instantly know it is because I do it every day. That's why. If you desire to instantly feel the energy and express what's coming up, to do that type of forecasting, to do that type of intuition or divination type work, if you desire that, you can have that 100%, right? The reason it looks easy for me is because I've been doing it for years. If you go to my YouTube channel and you go watch some of the early videos, it's not as streamlined as it is now, but you'll see the progression, right? We all need to give ourselves that like initiation, right? We never start as experts. That's not how it works. Okay. So that's number one, building community. You guys with me? Any questions about building community and finding places that you can do that? That is how you grow your impact. Yes, thumbs up. I love it. Thank you. Okay. Number two in this is building trust. Building trust. You guys are going to feel some overlap in all of these because obviously you can't have community without trust, right? But I want to pull out the most important pieces. And maybe that's an assumption of mine. Maybe there are communities that clearly there are communities that exist where the trust is fragile, where people are not authentic, right? And because of that, that shines the light on why people crave trustworthy, authentic spaces. Because we've been in spaces maybe where we haven't been able to experience that or be that or witness that or hold space for that. So building trust. Building trust is the number two piece of being able to create impact in your work. Okay. So how does building trust play out? To me, there's two ways to build trust. Number one is building trust with me, right? Like if you want to work with me, if you are considering working with me, you need to build some level of trust with me. And how do you do that? You get to know me. You get to know my ideas about things. You get to know the value system I hold. You get to learn how my energy works and how I run energy to see if that's a fit for you, right? So in order for me to build trust with my community, in order for you to build trust with your community, you need to find a way to express yourself, to be able to share freely, to be able to share content and to be able to teach things. And numerology gives such a foundation for that because number one, you literally never run out of things to say because every day is a different energy. I could do a live stream every single day on the energy of the day and never run out of stuff to talk about. I would always have content. I don't do it every single day because that would be daunting, but like, what a fun challenge would that be? I do it every single month. If you guys go look on my YouTube channel, I've been doing monthly forecasts now for years where I dive into the energy of the month. And they're like 30+ minute long. I have an incredibly high level of retention rate. People will binge watch them and DM me about them and say, oh my God, you said something about February 9th, and this is what happened to me on February 9th. This is me building trust with my community, right? They're getting to know me. They're getting to know I'm dependable, I'm reliable, I'm here. They're seeing what values I hold and if those values align with them. Because if you're going to work with someone, if you're going to hire someone, you want to make sure that their lens as to how they see the world is something that either aligns with you or inspires you. Don't go hiring people whose value systems don't match yours. That's a terrible idea. It's a recipe for getting yourself twisted, right? So letting yourself get to know each other, which means if you desire to make an impact, there needs to be ways for your clients to get to know you in a risk-free way. Free, accessible, in a way for them to get to know you. And this is the power of social media. And I know a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with it. But to me, being able to build these relationships with people is so potent, right? Through email, through YouTube, through social media. Obviously, you can do a lot of this in person as well, especially if your community has networking groups, like joining a weekly networking meeting, joining a women in business or, whatever, the Chamber of Commerce. Like there's lots of different ones. Hosting one yourself, right? That would be amazing. But building trust with people in sharing valuable, informative content. Okay. That is the key piece of building trust. The second key piece of building trust is how do your people trust themselves? Okay. How do your people trust themselves? It's so important to think about the fact that if someone's going to hire you or book you or whatever, they may have tried this with somebody else and it didn't work for them, right? Like if someone's hiring me to study numerology or to learn to develop their intuition, chances are they've been working on growing their intuition in the past and something may or may not have worked for them in the past. So how can I help them learn to trust themselves that this is a good risk to take, that they can grow into this system and it will support them, right? If you're a health coach, for example, I like to use health coach as this because we can all relate to this. Like if you're hiring a health coach, chances are you've tried things before and quote unquote failed. So in order to be willing to be vulnerable and book and take a risk and hire another health coach, you need to learn to trust yourself first, right? Otherwise, what if we don't trust ourselves? Like literally that's the basic most required thing. But many of us struggle with it. And it's a relationship. It's an ongoing relationship. If you've tried things and you've failed before, depending on where you've attached your expectations of yourself, it can erode self-trust big time. So one of my jobs, I believe, in building an authentic community and here to make an impact is to empower people to trust themselves again, right? And how do I do that? I let them feel seen, heard, and understood in what their code is. I remind them of what their strengths are. I remind them of how their motivation system works based on how I know their energy works. And I help them find the power within themselves to trust themselves again. Because if you don't trust yourself, it doesn't matter what I'm over here talking about. You won't be able to employ it. You won't be able to activate it. So no matter what we're doing, if we desire to make an impact, putting trust back in the hands of our community is critical, such an important step. Okay, so how do I put trust in the hands of my community, in the hands of my people, right? Through the lens of numerology, I see them in their gifts. I see them in their strengths. I remind them of their power, right? I can help them integrate the tools that we're learning through the lens of their code. And I remind them of this over and over again, right? To me, this is such a potent thing. And it's the thing I come back to for myself. Like when I doubt myself, when I question myself, I come back to, Megan, who are you? What is your code? What are you created for? What were you born for? You were literally born for this. And remind myself, if something hasn't worked for me, how do I revisit my code to reestablish that sense of trust and relationship with myself? Does that make sense? Any questions about building trust in the hands of your community? I love this. You guys are so good. Okay, I'm just going to look at the comments here. Yes, becoming a master of your craft. Absolutely. Aquarius energy is going to expose everyone, right? I'm an Aquarius over here, so I'm here for it. Yes. Yes, 222 over here in Texas, speaking on doing a daily forecast. Yes, absolutely, Ombre. I would love to see you doing that. It would be amazing. Christy is saying this has really brought to light that I've been working in the wrong environment my entire career. Oof. Like, let yourself feel that for a minute. When we have these big insights, it's so important to me to just be like, okay, let me just like pause time for a minute. And let me just sit with the depth of what I've just realized. Let's not skim it over. Let me feel it. And I encourage you, if you've had an insight like that, write it down in your notebook and go back and visit it in your own space, right? Like sit in the bathtub and journal, go for a walk and sit and reflect, whatever that looks like for you. Because the depth of your awareness around these insights will determine what happens next. A surface level awareness creates a surface level response. The depth of the awareness will reflect the depth of what's possible and what's next. Absolutely. Yeah, it's making sense. Beautiful. Yes, Ainsley. Christy, I'm so glad to hear it. It's come to you at the time when you most need it. Isn't that just the most wonderful thing? The aha moment. I'm so here for those aha moments, ladies. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, so good. Okay. So far we've covered building community and building trust. Are you guys good with that? Any questions coming up around either of those pieces?
Yes.
Yes. I love it. Does someone have a question? Do you want to say something?
Yeah. So you said it was to build on their gifts, their power, and their strengths, and reminding them of their motivation and their purpose. Okay, got it.
You got
Thank
it.
you.
Absolutely. You're so welcome. This is the thing, like, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I feel like the world and scarcity-based marketing will go around and tell you what you're bad at, what you're not good at, where you're messed up, where you're whatever, right? I mean, even when you look at things like the school system, it's like, well, this is where you got a bad grade. So this is where you have to pick up your socks, you know? Instead of, this is where I'm celebrating you. This is where you're killing it. This is where I'm proud of you. This is where you're doing so well. Like, let's shout that stuff out and celebrate that stuff. And honestly, the shifting from this like scarcity mindset of I'm going to call out lack, I'm going to call out scarcity, I'm going to call out what's missing. And instead, I'm going to activate, celebrate, and like highlight with the bright pink yellow highlighter the goodness. Because like there's room for more of that. Like let's bring out more of that. And it's so refreshing when you experience, to me, I consider that abundant-based business, abundance economy. I'm going to be talking more about that on Tuesday. If you guys want to have another free training coming up on that on Tuesday. But if if you start to hear where there's like mindset being projected around lack and scarcity versus mindset being projected around abundance, what's possible, what's available, what we're celebrating, what we're bringing on more of, you will start to align and attune with, where does my body feel I belong? What feels good to my heart and soul? And where do I feel like I get to bring myself? And like the fully expressed, celebrated version of me, not the like shame shrunken, like I'm broken version of me, right? Like it's a totally different game. Once you see this, you can't unsee it, by the way. It's crazy. Yes, let's all be those hype coaches, 100%. The depth of the awareness, that's a really good point, Shay. How to maintain the depth. It's not easy to maintain that level of depth on a regular, ongoing basis when we are inundated with a massive amount of information and data all day long. You can't go deep on everything. You just can't. But this is where our level of discernment comes in, and our level of choice of being like, ooh, I had a light bulb moment today. I'm going to write this down and I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to sticker it and I'm going to do whatever I need to do. And I'm going to come back to it when I have my sacred time. So for me, it might be like laying in bed. I always like to pull a card and do some reflection right before I go to sleep. So if I've had some big light bulb moments, I'm going to sit with those right before I go to sleep, because I'll often say, Spirit, angels, guides, give me wisdom and guidance on this topic while I'm sleeping, please. Thank you. Or the other thing I like to do is, like, if I've had this big insight, I'll just go for a walk. And I won't put earbuds in, I won't put music on, but I'll be reflecting and turning this over in my mind, right? So if I've had a big insight, it's like, this is what hit. Let me sit with that and like process the depth of that. It's not just like, I can keep it kind of surface level if we want, but it actually goes into quantum physics, right? When you create a charge in your body, it's literally the separation of atoms that create a particle swing, right? And that feeling of like, oh, I feel a thing, whether it's like a triggered response or like, oh, something hit me, a light bulb moment. When you are able to process that fully, it creates a particle wave of light, which are particle wave collapse, which creates a photon of light, right? And that photon of light is your aha inspiration moment. It's like enlightenment. And this is how quantum physics works. Is like when we're hit with something, the atoms separate. I'm probably saying this wrong. If you're an actual physicist, you're like, Megan, you're butchering this, but this is like the theoretical, okay? When you feel this like, ooh, feeling of discomfort, of something's off, the particles split to a positive and a negative, and they create this swing. The bigger the trigger in your body, the bigger the swing. When you collapse that trigger into a photon of light, into awareness, into healing, the proportion of photon of light, the proportionate of light is proportionate to the intensity of the trigger. So you can't go deep on everything, but when you pick the one or two things you're willing to go deep on, the level of enlightenment or energy, because a photon of light is energy, right? Light energy expands in your body, and it creates a power source that you can work with, that you can activate, that becomes part of your magnet, that becomes part of your passion, what you do, what you're here for, what you embody, right? And so kind of choosing those things and selecting to work with them is so powerful. And this is where I think the culture of like distraction, how it's taken our power away, because we've forgotten that we can create this like power field within our own bodies, right? By keeping everything very surface level. It's a little side detour, but hopefully you guys found that interesting. It's a vibe to remind people of their strength and power rather than harping on pain points, right? Like a lot of marketing strategists will tell you to do, 100%, 100%. Yes, my light bulb is so bright with this today. I am loving it. My final trigger hit too deep 2 weeks ago, and has sent me for a deeper search of what speaks to my soul. It's been long overdue. Yeah, your soul is always telling you. Your soul is always guiding you. We just need to like let ourselves sit in the awareness and notice it, right? It's so beautiful. We don't spend any time on distract. I know. I know. This is why I'm so obsessed with hiking, because I'm like, I can be out there and I'm not getting pinged. I'm not, whatever, or going off grid. I always go fully off grid, no cell phone, no power, nothing for at least a week, a year. And I wish I could do more. Unfortunately in Canada, it's really hard to spend any chunk of time in the winter off grid, but in the summer I do. Okay, let's go back to our points, Megan. Stay focused. I hope you guys are finding the detours valuable, but this is what happens when you just follow the energy thread, right? Yeah. Okay. Part 3 is authenticity. Authenticity is obviously woven through all the pieces we've talked about already, but I really want to highlight this as its own point. The reason it's possible for me to collaborate in the ways that I do, the reason it's possible where other people don't feel threatened to bring me into their spaces, and I don't feel threatened to bring and celebrate other people into my spaces, the reason I'm able to build trust is because of my authenticity. Authenticity and integrity. What does integrity mean? The word integrity literally means wholeness. Okay. I do not believe, I mean, maybe there's people out there purposely out of integrity, but I don't believe most people are walking around purposely out of integrity. But there is a lot of people walking around unaware of their lack of wholeness, right? That is out of integrity, whether you're aware of it or not. If you're not whole, you're not in integrity. So, what does wholeness mean to me? What does authenticity mean to me? It means understanding who I am and being fully unapologetic in my codes. This is who I am. I am not these other numbers. This is not my zone of genius. This is not what I'm skilled at. This is my zone. This is where I like to live. This is where I excel. This is where I can contribute so effectively and I can give, like it's to me, I look at it as medicine. Your code is your medicine. The more embodied you are in it, the more you get to share that medicine, the more that medicine will serve other people. And integrity, authenticity, and wholeness is never a one and done, right? Every time we go through a challenge, we are being called to a deeper level of wholeness, right? When we talked about this in day one, when we're walking through a challenge, there's a portal being opened that's bringing about some level of insight, awareness, and understanding. And once you learn the lesson, once you receive the insight, the guidance, the understanding, you choose to integrate it within you. And when you choose to integrate it within you, it gives you that power field to work with, right? And so this is why this idea of integrity, authenticity, and wholeness is it's a journey. It's not a destination. It's a journey. With every challenge you walk through, you get to choose, how am I integrating this into my power, into my capacity, into what's available for me? And when I embody that, it gives others the permission, right? It expands that permission field. If I get to say, this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm not good at, that means you can also own that in yourself. You don't have to be good at everything. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get everything right. You get to explore and understand, do it messy, what your code is. And the more you do that, the more that power center strengthens. The more that power center strengthens, the more your confidence grows. The messaging that I get from people over and over and over again is that, Megan, like when I meet you in real life, who you are online and who you are in your videos and la, it's the same. I'm like, of course it's the same. But it's interesting that that's notable. It's notable because it's not true in a lot of cases, right? It's notable because that's not what people are used to experiencing, which to me is heartbreaking because that means most people are walking around disconnected. And if you're disconnected, how are you embodied in your power? Your power is your most important asset. And if you're not the same here and here, then you're somehow disconnected and disassociated, right? Which is, that makes me sad. That means the thing that you were born with, you've distanced yourself from somehow in some aspect of your life. Maybe in one way of your life, you do feel aligned, and in another way of life, you're not aligned. And you know, like it's sad because it's a lack of fulfillment. It creates this dissatisfaction, it creates this frustration, it creates like a lower level of capacity. It makes us feel tired and burnt out and overwhelmed when really we're being pointed to a lack of alignment. We're being pointed to that. My energy doesn't work well under these circumstances. So I'm tired and I'm overwhelmed. And I'm not going to pretend that I never get tired. I never get overwhelmed. I do, right? 100% I do. But the difference is I understand what creates clarity for me, what creates that feeling of embodying my power. And when I notice the overwhelm or the lack of clarity creeping in, it's coming back to, well, what's true for me? Who am I? How do I get to show up in this circumstance? How do I get to reset my energy? How do I get to call back to my own center? And if I can continue to do that and hold space for myself to do it as messy as it is, sometimes it's nice and sometimes it's not so nice, I expand the permission field. And what that means to me is that if I get to be my full, truest, fully expressed, unleashed version of myself, you do too. You do too. We need other people walking the path to show us what's available. I would not be able to be where I am today with the skills I have today if it weren't for the teachers that have walked with me on my path and that continue to walk with me on my path. We have this like messed up idea that we're meant to figure this out on our own. This hyper individual mindset, which is an unhealthy mindset in my experience. In my experience, we're highly, highly interdependent, right? The connection is critical. I'm not supposed to be good at everything. I'm supposed to be good in my genius and collaborate with others who are good in their genius. And that makes me better off and them better off, right? And all of this comes back to contributing to the concept of being in integrity and being in authenticity and expanding that permission field, because the more that's true for me, the more it's true for you, right? The more you see me do it, the more it's available for you. The more you see others do it, the more it's available for you. And I think it's so, so powerful. I love it. Trickery. I'm like, which is the trickery? I love it. So good. So much of it's happening. It's so true. It's coming up right now. You'll notice it. And this is one of the things I love about understanding how patterns work through numerology. You'll notice things when things are ready to be transmuted, right? So the whole expression of it's always darkest before the dawn. When something is coming up really loud, it's ready to transmute. So if you're noticing a lot of obvious inauthenticity, that's because it's the universe pointing to you that it is now time to birth authenticity, right? And so there's going to be this almost like polarization of energy. But remember what we talked about before with the quantum physics, it's like that polarization of energy happens. And then when we have the particle wave collapse, we create the photon of light. So it's not easy as a human because it's uncomfortable and it's painful and it's difficult. And we don't like the duality. We think we don't like the duality. But how many of you guys live in a cold climate and you try to plan to go to the beach at least once in the winter, like the trip to Mexico, or even if you don't go to the beach in the wintertime, when the beach hits in the summer, it never felt so freaking good, right? Like where I live, it is cold as hell in winter. And when the summer hits, it is hot and it feels so good. And I would never be as obsessed with the sun and the heat as if I hadn't felt the cold that I feel in the winter and right now, right? And so we think we don't like these dualities, polarities, whatever. And it's true. Some of them are really painful, especially when it's things around like survival based, very painful, but reminding ourselves like, ooh, this is a portal. What's available here, right? What is walking me through this? Yeah. I love it. Okay. Authenticity, integrity, and wholeness. That is number 3 of making an impact. If you're not willing to hold these spaces, you will find your energy leaking. You will find your energy struggling. You will find yourself drained, and making an impact will not give you what you think it should give you, right? The authenticity, the integrity, the wholeness makes it so that when you're out doing the work you desire to do, it feels good. It lifts you up. You could talk about it all day long. Like it gives you life, right? So that is number 3 in building an impact. Do you have any questions about that? Yeah. Without the crap, we can't appreciate the awesomeness. It's so true. It makes the awesomeness feel so freaking good. Okay, let's get into point number 4 then. Point number 4 around creating an impact is having a map for transformation. To me, creating an impact is always linked to transformation. It's linked to some element of change. Okay. We have, a lot of people have talked about this like age of the information, right? I'm going to talk about this more when I talk about the abundance economy, because this distinction is critical. When you understand it, it's easier to operate in an abundant economy. But this idea of transformation versus information. Okay. So information is freely available everywhere. You can Google anything. You can ask ChatGPT anything. You can access libraries and databases of information all over the world. Anything you want to know, you can find out now for free. Okay. However, information does not equal change. If that were true, we would have solved many of the problems that we face because the information is readily available, right? The transformation is where the true impact and value lies. And so in your work, whatever your work happens to be, asking yourself, what is information and what is transformation? What is creating change? It's the pieces that are creating change that are actually mattering. So when I look at numerology, I can look at it through the lens of how does this support transformation? I can look at the codes of the people I'm working with, and I can understand if you, if you've tried X, Y, and Z in the past and it has not worked for you, here's why. I can see it in your code. It's like, well, if you have a lot of physical energy in your code, it's like, well, how was that incorporated? Did you do things that allowed you to feel it? Did you give yourself physical, tangible markers? Did you involve your body in the process? Right? It's like, oh no, we just like kept it at the mental level and like analyzed it. Like, well, no wonder it didn't work for you, right? Or if you have a lot of mental energy in your chart, were you given time to analyze it? Were you given time to reflect and process at the mental level? Or were you just expected to jump straight into action, which is more of a physical thing? And if that happened, of course the transformation didn't hit, because that's not how your energy works. So if I want to provide transformational change to my clients, knowing their chart, knowing how their energy works makes it so that I can see why things didn't work for them in the past, where they're sabotaging right now, what's holding them back right now, and where I can guide them to experience the change they truly desire. You can see it in their chart. There's a couple ways you can look at it. You can look at their birth chart, right? So their codes, what they're doing, how are their energies working. And you can also look at a forecasting chart to see like, well, how are we moving over time right now? We're starting on this day. You and I, we're going to get together. We've got a certain goal we're going to work through. How is your energy going to progress over the next, like, let's say 3 months? And how can I work with that progression to help you get the transformation you desire? Right? Most of the time when we're not getting the transformation we desire, it's because the advice that we're following doesn't hit with our own codes, or it's missing what's happening at the universal level or at our personal forecast level to understand why we're kind of moving along the path we're moving on. So it's like, let me understand the energy first, and then I'll walk you through it. Like, it's not that hard. And it's so powerful because you can literally shortcut how you help people. Like working with people, whether it's coaches, consultants, healers, whatever, who have a certain process of getting their clients from like point A to point B. Once you know how their energy works, you will collapse that process to be much shorter and much more efficient and much more to the point, which is a benefit to you and your client because number one, their success rate goes up. Number two, the referral rate goes up. The retention with you, working with you for other issues goes up. They will stay with you longer, right? They won't just like dip in and out. They'll stay with you. And it allows you to collaborate more easily with others because you're seen as this expert, because you kind of like crack the code and you're able to like collapse some of these challenges that some people might take months to sort out. You're like, I got it in weeks. right? And I think it's so, so, so powerful to understand this. And it works in lots of different contexts. You can talk about it in terms of like I look at it a lot when it comes to marketing because I help people with marketing, people who are sensitive to energy. I work as a business coach for people who are sensitive to energy, and I teach business school for people who are sensitive to energy. So it's like, when I understand what your codes are, I can help you figure out, well, how do I design products? How do I market them? How do I communicate to my clients? How do I understand how to like articulate where they're at and where I'm at? If I know what my client codes are, which is like the type of clients who tend to be attracted to me, here's the other thing. The more you are in integrity with your code, the more you will attract a very specific client base, energetically speaking, because you have a soul contract, a soul agreement with this level of client. They will show up with certain specific patterns, and then you can speak to them. For example, every time I do an individual reading with clients, every time I do a one-on-one reading or a private reading, it never fails. It shows up in their chart that there is something about them that, number one, wants to understand the difference between fate, destiny, and free will. All of my clients have that in common. They're trying to understand, where is my power? Where is spirit's power? Where's the universe's power? What's happening to me? What is happening for me? What is it within my control? What is not within my control? They all, at some level, want to understand that. The other thing all my clients have in common is they desire to make an impact. They know they're here for a reason. They know they're here for a purpose. They may not know what it is, but they desire to make an impact. Number three, all of them are highly intuitive, and they may or may not know this about themselves yet. Some know, some don't. So if I just take those three pieces of information and I make that all of my marketing, when my clients hear it and feel it, they're like, oh my God, you get me. Like, yes, I do. I get you because I know what your code is. I feel it. And not only do I get you in your code, but I carry the code that can help solve some of those problems. We are like two little puzzle pieces that come together, right? You have some questions, I have some answers. You have answers for your clients. You have medicine for your clients. And this is the important thing to understand, is like we're all this like dynamic puzzle, right? Where we all can come together in this way. And this is kind of what makes all of this work. We all get to show up in this way. It's not about a hierarchy, it's about a network, a collaboration, an expanded circle, right? The puzzle pieces analogy is my favorite too. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, I am just checking in the chat here. So good. Okay, yes, catch the replay. Amazing. Okay, whew, those were the four pieces. Transformation map was the last one, saying you can either use birth charts or you can also use forecasting and understanding client patterns, right? There are ways through advanced numerology where we can actually look at your specific soul contract with your client. And you can also start to recognize the patterns, right? So Anne-Marie, who shared yesterday, she's been a long-time client. She started to notice that all of her clients who came to her had multiple ones. So she just started talking about what the influence was to have multiple ones. And she knows how to work through that challenge. She knows what that challenge feels like, and she knows the answer to it. So it's like people are like, oh my God, you get me. Yeah, I do. Like, let's sit down and let's like do something with this. Like, let's stop making this be the reason we can't move forward. Right. And so, yeah, I don't know. I get so worked up about this. I'm like, breathe, Megan. I'm going to be sharing a bit more on the abundance economy on Tuesday. If you guys are called to learn more about that, I'll send out the information. Hopefully, you're all receiving my emails. The doors are open for practical numerology certification, where I teach you how to do all of the pieces I talked about in today's call. Okay. So I teach you how to do the birth chart. I teach you how to look at multiple birth charts together to understand how to find the patterns in them and what they mean, right? We have content modules where I teach all of this. And then we have once a week, we have live calls together where you can come to me and say, you know, here's what I'm seeing. What does this mean? And we'll talk through it. And you can take action on it, and you can post in the group and get feedback. Come back to the next call with more questions. My style of teaching numerology is very applied and very hands-on, which is why I call it practical numerology. I want this to be something you can do without needing to like pull out a textbook or whatever. Like, no, like piece of paper, back of your envelope calculations, math on your fingers. I want you to be able to feel the energy of the numbers so that anytime someone's like, oh, I see 222 on my clock, what does that mean? You instantly feel it and know, right? You can instantly receive the message and the guidance. The numerology and practical numerology that I teach is 100% focused on birth charts and practical numerology level forecasting. In advanced numerology, I teach a very, very in-depth forecasting system that does require formulas that are complex. And that is like kind of the second level. So you first need to understand how to feel the energy of the numbers first, with the numbers like 1 through 11. I don't do human design. I do talk about how archetypes and the numbers interact with each other, because each number does have archetypal energy to it. So we do talk about that. What else do we talk about? Does anyone have any questions about that so far, about how that might work for them? I'm also going to go into a bit of business model stuff. So if you guys want to know more about business models, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. This is how you can either start a business with numerology or integrate it into an existing business, and how you can kind of create, number one, free content. Everybody needs to create free content right now. This goes into community building and trust building, right? So number one, free content. Number two, accessibly priced offers, offers that people can afford to pay for, to test the waters, to see if there's a level of trust and connection, to build that sense of trust in themselves with a low risk, right? Something they can afford, where it's like, if it didn't work for them, no harm, not a lot of money, right? They need to be able to feel that from you. And then number three, which is so important, is sustainable income. If you build your business off of only level 2, you will not create sustainable income and you will struggle financially. And I see this happening time and time again in the coaching and healing industry, where people have created a business where they're unable to sustain a level of income because their income is like up and down, right? Or they're making a lot of money, but they're really working. And then the next month they're making less money because they're trying to recover. And, not saying that there's not going to be ups and downs, 100% there will be, but there's also strategies we can employ. And I teach them using numerology that will help create some level of income smoothing, some level of predictability with these three aspects: the free, the accessible, and the sustainable. So if that's something you want more on, please make sure you stay connected to me. I will be sharing more of that. The doors for practical numerology will remain open until, I think it's like March 2nd. And I'm giving away readings for everybody who joins. You'll get a private reading done either by me or an advanced numerologist. And the first bunch of people will get their readings booked with me, until my calendar fills up, basically. And then I will send you with someone I highly trust in my advanced numerology class, who's taken all of this for enough time that they fully integrated it. Yeah, it's $177 a month for 12 months. So I kept it as like easily doable as possible. At $177 a month, you should be able to make your money back within 1 to 2 readings a month minimum. Most people charge over $100 per reading. I charge $350 to $400 per reading, depending on what type of reading I'm doing. So if you want support with that, let me know. Yeah, but that's how Anne-Marie paid it off in like a month. Is she studied for the first 4 weeks, learned how to do birth charts, created a beta offer where she posted it on her socials, and she was like, if anyone, I'm studying this numerology course, I'm offering X number of readings at a discounted rate. If you want one, let me know. And she had enough interest in that post that she paid off her course basically right away. So I will say, obviously, you need a community to do that. Like, you need to have somebody that you're selling to. But if you do not have a community and you want to build a community, that is where forecasting comes in. That is where building your network comes in, and partnership comes in, which is another strategy I talk about. We talked about this through point number 1, which was building community, where you build that sense of trust and familiarity, where you bring other experts in, other experts will invite you in, and you share your wisdom and knowledge freely. Aw, Carly, thank you. Carly's saying incredible course. My business is so much more successful now. I appreciate that. This has been great. Thank you so much, you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, DM me. I'd love to invite you into PNC. If you want to talk to me about how this will fit in your life, in your business, let's just hop on a one-on-one call, or like we can DM back and forth, whatever's easier. My goal is to see you succeed, to see you get your money back and make money off of it in a very short period of time. If that's your goal, my other goal is that I want you to develop that sense of inner authority through a really strong intuition. At the end of the day, that is like my most powerful obsession, is helping you develop inner authority, inner trust, inner sovereignty through your connection with your own inner guidance system, with spirit, being able to connect in whenever you need to work with that energy. So powerful. Yay. Carrie saying this course has been brilliant. Thank you, Carrie. Thanks, Marissa. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Ombre. Thanks, Christy. Oh, you guys are so good. Thank you for being here with me. And I look forward to chatting with you guys in the DMs. Absolutely. Mwah. Bye, everyone.